Do you ever feel a longing for the past? Not necessarily your own past. I mean a desire to be in a previous era or go back to simpler times. I know I do. Look at these clothes. And I don't think it's just me. I think a lot more people are starting to feel that desire as well. I suspect nostalgia has always been around at some level, but perhaps it was a little less noticeable in those periods of history where progress came a bit slower. Times when very little changed from one generation to the next. But over the last century, things have been changing faster and faster, to the point that now the very composition of Western societies and lifestyles are undergoing dramatic and even dystopian changes every other week. It's hard not to look back on the 1950s, 60s, and even 70s with a sense of reverence for a more serene time that just seems better in so many ways. But now we are racing into the future faster than ever before, guided by artificial intelligence, automation, and robotics. Machines will soon augment or create almost entirely the things that humans once did: art, furniture, music, and design. All of this only serves to intensify that feeling that stirs deep inside us. A longing, a pull toward the past, nostalgia. More and more people are feeling it. Let's talk about what it is, why we feel it, and what this means for vintage and antique items as we move into a world of AI and automation. Hello my friends, and welcome to another episode of Antique Acquisitions. I'd love to see you here in the next video, so please like and subscribe if you enjoy content about history and antiques. And please check out my online store, Old Europe Antique Home Furnishings, when you have a chance. In mere decades, we've gone from analog to algorithm. AI writes stories, generates symphonies, paints portraits, robots build homes faster than craftsmen ever could, and the need for human artistry and skill seems to decrease by the day. But as our world becomes more automated, it will become more apparent that something is missing: the exquisite yet often imperfect creative touch of the human hand. Nostalgia is more than memory or ideas about the past. It's an emotional bridge, a longing, not just for a time, but for a feeling of security, a feeling of authenticity, of moments that weren't optimized but lived, of people who left their marks, not perfectly, but meaningfully. We can't go back in time, but we can bring items of that age into our lives today. There's just something intriguing about antique furniture and other items made so long ago. You can't help wondering where they've been, who made them, who owned them, what was life like at each stage of their history. In a way, collecting antiques and vintage items made and enjoyed by previous generations might be the closest thing we have to a remedy for the nostalgia that we feel. But this nostalgic feeling is not new to our generation. In the late 1800s, after a half-century of industrialization, people yearned for a link to the greatness of their civilization, the ancestral might and monumental permanence of their heritage, the handcrafted styles and interior designs from the 1700s and earlier. They rejected the cleaner, industrially mass-produced lines that mimicked the neoclassical and empire styles, even the modern Louis Philippe styles. Instead, they sought out dark woods, heavy carvings, and ornate forms, a way to reconnect with the handcrafted world their grandparents knew. Just like in the 19th century, we're repeating that pattern today. As AI takes the reins of creation and manufacture, we will once again turn to antiques, not just out of fashion, but out of longing to connect. A handmade dresser, a vintage typewriter, a worn armchair, they ground us as they bring the comforting and familiar energy of our ancestors into our midst. They make the intangible tangible. Most things will soon be mass-produced items designed by AI, shipped by machines, sold by algorithms. But a vintage chair, a handwritten letter, a worn book cover, these carry the fingerprints of time. the feelings and energy of previous generations. As human beings, we crave objects that hold the memories of being cherished and used over decades and centuries. AI will create and manufacture beauty. It might even fabricate replicas of the glories of past furniture, art, and decor. But it can't miss something. It doesn't know the joy of a childhood toy, the smell of grandma's house, the creak of an old floorboard. That's nostalgia. It's a deeply human emotion, and it doesn't come from a modern reproduction. An aesthetic can be reproduced with replicas of past objects, but the true feeling of an age only comes from the objects that were actually there, crafted in the past by an artisan who put his time, energy, and soul into the making of the piece. And that, my friends, is why the desire for antiques and vintage items will not only remain, but will increase over the coming years. Every antique is a time capsule, a survivor, a piece of memory in physical form. In a future where things will be built fast and forgotten faster, we will hold tighter to what has lasted. Not necessarily because it's better, but because it's human. In interior design, blending the new with the old will become a critical skill. AI-powered smart homes decorated with mid-century furniture. Digital art displayed next to family heirlooms. In the sterile precision of the future, there will be a need to incorporate the past. That's why antiques won't disappear. In fact, they will become more important. And each year, as antique and vintage items age a bit more and become even more scarce, as some are lost to the destructive forces of time, those that remain will increase in value. Nostalgia plays a critical role in the human experience because as we look back, we tend to feel nostalgia not necessarily for everything in the past, but particularly for what we perceive as the best bits and pieces of the past. This is the important thing to understand. Nostalgia is that feeling that causes us to keep the best parts of the past alive in our minds. It causes us to strive for a tomorrow that preserves the things that we valued most so that those things can be included in the future while the less desirable aspects are left behind. This is why we connect with the past and preserve it by collecting and saving those physical items that were there, that were part of it, that are imbued by their makers and owners with energy, hopes, dreams, and desires. Every piece carries a bit of the energy and intent from its previous owners. That is why longing for and learning about the past is a good thing, and how nostalgia helps us to create a better tomorrow. It's not a rejection of the future, but rather a guide to creating a better future. Do you have some items around the house that have a story to tell? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoy antiques with a bit of history, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.